Hi, I'm Scott Mayman from mynewsfeed.com.au, and this is the latest edition of Ask A Pollie. It's a chance for us to have a chat, catch up, get to know politicians, whether they be state or federal or local politicians, find out what makes them tick. Today, our special guest, the federal member for Rankin, Jim Chalmers.
It's really good to see you, Scott. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I've been looking forward to it as well. It should be a lot of fun. I've got to ask you though, Jim Chalmers. Anybody call you JC for short?
I get a bit of JC.
Yeah.
I don't have a sort of an established nickname, so yeah, JC or occasionally
Jimmy.
Occasionally that. I got that when I was a little fella. I got that a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't love that. Had a little bit of James, but mostly Jim, JC occasionally.
Now, a lot of people don't realise this. Before entering politics, you were glamorising the life of a media advisor.
I've never heard it described that way.
I was being polite.
I did a bit of media work, but I mostly did, the main kind of advising I did was as, first of all, Deputy Chief of Staff and then Chief of Staff to Wayne Swan when he was the Treasurer, mostly during the global financial crisis. So I have done a little bit of media in my time, but mostly kind of policy or strategy or management, working for the Treasurer at the time, the Deputy Prime Minister he became, but I've worked for some others as well, Kim Beazley and some of the other greats of the Labor movement over the years.
So what made you decide, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to be a politician?
I've had it in the back of my mind for a long time, and it really comes from growing up in this community. I was born in this electorate, I grew up in this electorate, and I think I've had a sense really from when I was a little kid that if you had the capacity to speak up for other people, then you had a responsibility to speak up for other people. And so it's always been knocking around in my mind that I'd want to represent the area. I had an amazing modern history teacher who first kind of planted the seed in my head in high school that people like me didn't just have to be observers of politics, we could be participants in politics, and I genuinely didn't know that. I wasn't from a political family, and this modern history teacher, an amazing guy called Norbert Grulich, my favourite teacher of all time, someone very important to me, I still speak to him now, he put this kernel of an idea in my head that I could represent the community, I could make a contribution even on the national stage, and before he put that kernel in my head, I had absolutely no idea of the possibilities.
So another exclamation mark there when it comes to schooling. Some good things do come from going to school.
Yeah, absolutely, and transformational teachers. Like a lot of people, you probably do, Scott, everyone, most people you come across has a transformational teacher that made a big difference in their life. For me, it's Norbert. I had lots of great teachers. But Norbert, he changed my life. I genuinely probably wouldn't be here without him.
Would you say he's your mentor, or do you have somebody else in the Labor Party who you believe is your mentor?
Well, that's the other secret, I think. I've been really fortunate for a really long time. I've never been backwards in coming forwards in asking for advice from people who've been through the kind of work that I wanted to do, or in other fields. And so Norbert was probably the first one, but I'm very close to Wayne Swan. I'm very close to Kim Beazley. I have people in the business community who are mentors of sorts, people I've worked with in the past. And I really, when people come and ask me about a career, not just in politics, but any kind of career, I think one of the secrets is finding people who believe in you, prepared to give you good advice based on their own experience. Whether you call it mentoring or something less formal, I think it's absolutely crucial that we have those people in our lives. And there's a handful of people I speak to probably almost every week who give me that kind of advice.
People in your lives, people who give you that advice. Let's talk about your personal life, your wife. How did you meet?
Well, my wife's Laura. She worked in the same field as me. So she was a media advisor. She was first a journalist. Very.
She's gone back to journalism, hasn't she?
Yes. Yeah. So she's an accomplished journalist. Went to work for Penny Wong in the climate change portfolio. Has a real interest in climate change. Then went to work for Prime Minister Gillard when I was working for Deputy Prime Minister Swan. And so we met around 2010. and we got married in 2013.
Kids?
3 kids, 3 little monkeys. Beautiful kids,
Yeah.
2, 4 and 6. 6-year-old is Leo, the 4-year-old is Annabella, 2-year-old is Jack, and they are everything to us.
How do you go with spreading your time between the family and, of course, Canberra? Last minute things happen. Birthdays, well, they may fall on the same day as a coup in Canberra. How do you say, I'm sorry, your birthday's going to have to be delayed 1 week?
Yeah.
How do you handle
Well,
that?
I've been really lucky because, in the birthdays of our kids, I've only missed one, and that was this year. It's just been really fortunate that I've been to all of them except for one. But yeah, inevitably that happens. And I think it's important to recognise that not just politics, there's a lot of FIFO workers who are in that boat.
True.
There's a lot of workers in other industries. And so I think it's important to recognise the pressures on mums and dads in a range of industries where you don't have a lot of say in when you're able to be home or on the road. And people miss those occasions. But I think the key is making the most of your time together when you have that time together. And because I enjoy the company of my kids so much, I hope that the time that we are together is enjoyable for them too, because for me it's the most important thing.
So it's the weekend, you can finally kick your shoes off, you can relax. Who's in charge of the remote control?
I'm in charge of nothing at our place. I'm in the ranking of the 5 people that live at our place. I'm in number 5 position on all of these key issues, key considerations, and that's fine by me.
What about when you socialise? Do you have a drink or two, beer, spirits, wine? What's your favourite?
Yeah, I've had a big break from alcohol actually.
Yeah. That's a big beverage rest, as they call it.
Yeah, yeah. I've gone a little while now without. I love beer and red wine, but I haven't had any for some time now. I'm on a bit of a health kick. I had a bit of an issue I had a skin cancer.
Yes,
and
it was just last year.
Last year,
Yes.
and I had some surgery for that didn't go well. And so I had some months afterwards of in and out of hospital and the like, which I haven't spoken a lot about because I don't want people to be deterred from getting checked and having melanomas out. A lot of people do it better than I did, but I had months of recovering from that, which was a bit difficult, but lots of antibiotics and all the rest of it, so it was easy enough to have a break from beer and wine.
Now, from memory, it was on your chest.
Yeah, it's right
wasn't it?
here. It's right here. Yeah.
Just there. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a. It's about that round on my chest. Yeah.
I had one on the back of my skull. I had no idea it was there until my wife told me about it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't have the same complications that you had. But,
Yeah, and it's pretty rare. Typically the surgeon said to me, I'm a runner, and the surgeon said to me, you'll be running in 2 weeks. And it was 4 or 5 months before it had healed. 4 months, I think, before it had healed. And your story is a bit defensible. If you had it on the back here, you couldn't see it every day. But because mine was here, I saw it every day, brushing my teeth or whatever it was in the mirror. And I've got no excuse for how long I left it before I had it checked out.
Why did you leave it? This is
I made
not
a
60
mistake.
minutes.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I looked at it, and for about 6 months, I think, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
I looked at it and I thought, that doesn't look quite right. And I was actually at the doctor for a routine thing, and while the doctor was on his keyboard, I think writing me a script or something, I said, look, Doc, while I've got you, what do you think of this guy here? And I could see on his face that he thought it was a problem straight away. I could read it in his face, and he said, we're going to have to cut that out ASAP.
Wow.
And so...
How did you react to that?
To be honest, I wasn't that... I was worried about it. It's not nice to think that you have anything that's called cancer associated with you. And again, everyone watching this or listening to this will have some experience. But For me, really, it really brought home, and the message for everyone is, if you see something that doesn't look quite right, get it checked out straight away. Don't waste the months that I wasted.
Yeah.
And get regularly checked anyway. And we've got experts in Queensland in particular, people who are great at identifying problems, getting them sorted as soon as possible. And so people should be doing that. And it was a mistake that I made, that I put my hand up for, that I looked at it for months before I had it checked. And if I hadn't been at the doctor for some other reason, it may be that I still might not have had it checked.
Big message there. Don't leave it.
Don't leave it.
How are you now?
I'm good now. It's pretty well healed. It's a pretty rotten looking scar, but apart from that, I'm good, and I'm back into the 6 monthly checks now.
Good on you. All right, let's check in with some of our readers, shall we?
Let's do it.
Ask a Pollie question. We've got many readers on the website mynewsfeed.com.au who've written in with some of their questions. We've also got listeners through Breeze FM and Rebel FM.
Great.
Let's have a look at one of the questions. First up, David. Until last week, I operated a small business in your electorate, but I've now been forced to shut down and retrench the 4 staff that I had working for me under JobKeeper. Now, I know that's a particular thing that's very close to your heart.
Yep.
I'm 53. I don't have an income. I'm not eligible for the dole, and I'm the victim of ageism in my attempt to find a new job. Now, the question he has for you: if you're elected, what provisions would Labor undertake to rid Australia of ageism?
Yeah.
It really is a thing, even though you're told it's not a thing.
Yeah. Well, I agree it's a thing. There's a couple of parts to David's question. Firstly, on JobKeeper, one of my main concerns, I think, is what you're alluding to, Scott, is I think that for a lot of small businesses in our community and around Australia, I think JobKeeper was withdrawn too soon. A lot of businesses still impacted by coronavirus, whether it's the social distancing, cinemas and the like, whether it's the closure of the international borders, travel agents and the like. Clearly, David's business is impacted still, and so I think JobKeeper was cut too soon. It shouldn't go on forever for everyone, but we should have been more responsive to what's actually going on in the economy. So that's the first set of issues that David raises. I think that's a problem. Those 4 people that he employ, people are counting on them too, and so we want to keep as many people in work as possible. I think there is an issue with ageism, particularly in the jobs market, and I think the first thing that we should do is recognise where government policy is making that worse, not better. So the government has a hiring credit scheme. They call it JobMaker. They've always got these kind of sloganeering kind of names for things, but their JobMaker program is a hiring credit for people aged 35 and under.
Yeah.
So already David's disadvantaged in the labour market by the fact that the government has left any worker over 36 out of this hiring credit scheme. So first, I think responsibility is not make it worse. Our second responsibility after that is to recognise that the ageism exists, that we want to make sure that we are employing people who've got all this experience and they've got all of this, they've got so much to offer. And so when we're designing our labour market programs or our job market programs, then we need to be cognisant that David, I'm sure, at 53, has many years of meaningful contribution to make to somebody's business, whether it's his or somebody else's, and government policy needs to support that.
There's a lot of talk in that about government policy, and I can tell you, in broadcasting, I've been a victim of ageism as well.
Right.
Whether it's television or radio, it's pretty much reality. But you talk about the policy, what can be done to reverse this? I mean, we just talked about the JobMaker scheme that's for 35 and less. There seems to be that missing link there from 35 to, I'm just going to say 55, something like that.
Yeah.
What can be done?
Yeah. Well, I think when you're designing hiring credits or those kinds of schemes, then people who are over 55 should get a look in. There used to be a scheme that was supposed to incentivise the hiring of, well, I don't even like saying older workers because you're not necessarily older worker at 55, but there used to be a scheme for that purpose, but it failed and the government didn't really kind of try and fix it, and so we don't really have any options for people there. You mentioned government policy, and it's because of, I work in economic policy, and so that's my first port of call, but I think it's a broader cultural issue too. And one of the reasons why I think, I was talking to the Bunnings CEO about this the other day, one of the reasons people like Bunnings, for example, is because they've got people there who are ex-tradies who might be 60.
They've got a wealth of knowledge.
They know their stuff.
Yeah.
And you go and ask for advice, and they're drawing on 40 years of experience. And that is a bit of an example, and there's probably other businesses that are good at that. But I said to the Bunnings CEO, we appreciate that in our community, I know. There's got to be other examples where that's the case.
Let's move on to another question from unlisted, by the looks of things. Okay.
This might be an especially good one.
Under a Labor federal government, can you get involved and fix the M1 issues?
Right.
All right. The problem with the M1 will never change while there are idiots in the planning department. Their words, not mine. None of them have basic mathematics skills. 4 lanes into 3 just doesn't work. The last 3 upgrades have fallen short. It's a choking point at the Gateway overpass as well. So, how do you react to that?
Well, first of all, I think I've spent almost all of my 43 years living within a kilometre or 2 of the M1, and I feel like I've spent a big chunk of that on the M1 itself.
Haven't we all?
Haven't we all? Back and forth to the coast, back and forth to the city, even within our community. So I feel like I have a good sense of the M1, and I understand people's frustration. I feel like the last upgrade has been an improvement. It's not perfect still, but that Gateway choke point, I used to, you'd sit there for 45 minutes before this most recent upgrade, and so I feel like we're heading in the right direction. Maybe the correspondent thinks differently, but I think it's getting better. And I was critical of the federal government for a long time of not investing in the M1. They have come forward with some funds after I think a good 8 or 9 years of not. And my view is better late than never. State government's contributing a heap of money too, and Mick de Brenny, the local member there, has done a lot of good stuff. So I try and be glass half full about it. I think it is better than it was. Obviously, with the population growth that we have, it's going to need to be upgraded continuously. There's still work going on there which will make it better. So I prefer to think that things are getting much better. I acknowledge they're not perfect, but I think compared to 5, 6, 7 years ago, I think we're on the right track.
And keeping in mind also Logan City's having bigger businesses move into the region, it's going to cause all traffic from Ipswich, Gold Coast, to possibly even Brisbane's north side, the Sunshine Coast as well. I think the question this person has asked is why just put in 1 lane when really should there be planning for 2 lanes in the future? Yeah, I mean, clearly the capacity needs to be much bigger, whether it's 1 or 2 lanes, whether it's getting those choke points right, whether it's getting the busway right. I think it's probably all of those things. But the point you raise in your question about our location, this is our big chance in our community. If we care about jobs, and we all do, and we want those businesses moving in, we want to be in logistics, we want to be in all of those sorts of areas, the jobs that come from manufacturing batteries for renewable energy, all this sort of stuff. If we want to be into that, then what we should be saying to the rest of the country and the rest of the world is there's not many places where you've got the M1, the Gateway motorway, the Logan motorway. We are at the intersection of the main arterial roads of southeast Queensland. So when I meet with investors, when I meet with councils, state government, when I meet with the Council of Mayors, all that sort of stuff, our big chance really is that logistics network that we have here, and so we should be using that to get as many jobs as we can, and that means making sure the infrastructure is as good as it can be. We have another Rob who's written in. I think Jim has the makings of a great leader. Congratulations, you got somebody's vote there. Will he step up and take over from Albo? But if you do that, will it mean that we won't see you in the local electorate?
Well, I'm flattered by Rob's interest, but I won't be doing that. I'm a big believer in Anthony, and one of the reasons I didn't run for leader after the last election is because I thought then, and I think now, that Anthony's the right person for the job. He's a very authentic person. He's got a lot of experience, and our team is behind him. And in relation to whether or not people will see me around, I mean, my community means everything to me, and I can't imagine a world, no matter what job I'm doing, you'll still see me up at Croydon markets next to the train station on Sundays. You'll still see me at Logan Brothers. You'll still see me everywhere, because I think the best representatives of a local community are the people who get their inspiration from being part of the community itself. And so no matter what happens, I'll always be around.
What about if Albo steps down?
I really want to be the treasurer, and my interest is in economic policy, and I can see the connection between that local understanding and national economic policy. And the reason I chose this job, whether it's all those years ago when Norbert was putting the idea in my head, or how my thinking's evolved, but my job is a combination of social worker and making policy at the national level. And there's not many jobs where you can do those things simultaneously, and they're very, very closely connected. And I like the Treasury role for that reason.
Okay. Moving along, Brad has written, "Dear Mr. Chalmers, before the pandemic, my doctor had to charge me $5 for a copay when I visit the GP. Right. He said that it was because the Medicare rebate freeze that GPs were getting was still a financial nightmare for his GP. It needs attention. Will Labor government correct this freeze?"
Yeah, so we opposed the freeze in the first place. I think my understanding from memory, and Brad might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the freeze formally ended in about 2019. I can check that. But we opposed the 2016 version and the 2019 version because we didn't want to see out-of-pocket costs go up. The government proceeded anyway. They also had, I think in 2014, an idea for a formal co-payment that everyone would pay when they went to see the doctor. We believe in Medicare. We want to see it strengthened rather than weakened, and so we've typically been on the side of Brad and others who don't want to see those out-of-pocket costs go up.
I was just going to say, doesn't it defy the purpose of what Medicare stood for all those years ago when it was introduced?
Exactly right, Scott. And other countries look at our health system with envy. Unfortunately, and I don't want to get too partisan about it, but our government has, at different times, our federal government, tried to kind of, take the kind of universality out of it, and it's the universality that makes it work.
Okay. How are you feeling?
Great, it's a good chat.
You ready for a bit of a fast five action then? This is to finish up the interview.
Your viewers should know that I said to you before we went on air that this was the bit that I was apprehensive about. Well, let's do it.
I don't know, I think some of those questions were doozies. All right, the fast five. Fast five, here we go with Jim Chalmers. I'm going to mention a name or a title or something. I need you to immediately respond. Here we go. First up, Bert Van Manen.
Inoffensive.
JobKeeper.
Withdrawn too soon.
Anastasia Palaszczuk.
Right and resolute.
Canberra.
Necessary.
And Meghan and Harry.
Let's leave them alone.
Great way to finish up. Jim Chalmers, the federal member for Rankin, joining us for Ask A Pollie today from mynewsfeed.com.au. JC, thanks mate.
Thanks for the chat, appreciate it.